A report claims that a Mauricio Pochettino gamble might be too tempting for Tottenham to resist in the summer. More on the interest from Liverpool in Tottenham centre-back Micky van der Ven as Spurs slap a £100 million valuation on the Dutchman. A report states that Spurs are interested in the best striker in the world, who would be an upgrade on Randall Kolo-Muani. I didn't know Harry Kane was available, to be honest. He's not him, sadly, by the way. And an article states that Thomas Frank's future remains uncertain at Tottenham as player power could influence the club's decision over whether they sack the manager. Here are your daily Tottenham news headlines. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Craig and here are your daily Tottenham news headlines, where I'll be going through all the latest news, rumours and reports. If you're watching on YouTube and are not already as yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Like, share and comment below. And if you're listening on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. Okay, let's get into it. The Standard report that a Mauricio Pochettino gamble might be too tempting for Tottenham to resist, and that Pochettino could be a unifying force if Spurs want to go back to the future. 6 months out from leading the USA into a World Cup on home soil, Pochettino was asked to choose the one thing he would like to achieve in the rest of his managerial career. It appeared to be a tap-in. Appearances, though, can deceive. To win the Premier League and the Champions League, came the response. We were so close at Tottenham. I want to achieve this. That came as no real surprise to anyone keeping half an eye on Pochettino in recent years. Last year, when asked if he wanted to return to Tottenham, the 53-year-old said, "I still feel in my heart that yes, I would like to come back one day." Pochettino has made no secret of his desire to reclaim his place he left in the dugout in November 2019. He was regularly been linked to do so, including this time last year during Ange Postecoglou's struggles. However, reports suggest the US Soccer Federation would be owed around £20 million in compensation if Pochettino was to leave before the World Cup. Unless he was sacked, a premature exit was always unlikely. But Pochettino looks certain to leave after the World Cup, when there is every chance the job he wants is waiting for him. Thomas Frank's position at Spurs continues to hang by a thread, and one more bad result could prove terminal. Arguably, the best case scenario now for Frank is that at Spurs, he can effectively serve as an interim until the summer. At that point, Spurs will have a decision that is more familiar to the likes of Manchester United. Do you go back to the future? Logistically, appointing Pochettino would not be ideal. He would likely not be available to take over until a week or two into July, delaying his input into transfer decisions and pre-season preparations. Since leaving Spurs, spells at PSG and Chelsea were not particularly eye-catching either, until a 5-1 win over Uruguay in November. Plenty were unconvinced by the USA's progress under him. Returning to Spurs would be a risk for Pochettino, potentially damaging a legacy that has already been tarnished somewhat by his time at Chelsea. But Spurs have tried ruthless win-now managers in Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. They have tried the charisma and unwavering principles of Ange Postecoglou. Promoting from within the Premier League in the form of Frank and Nuno Espirito Santo has not worked either. It leaves the nostalgia card driven by emotion as just about the only one hand that Spurs have left. A head coach to unify every level of the club, from fans to players to boardroom, is required, so Pochettino appeals. He has the personality and style of play to get the supporters and players behind him. The Lewis family are adamant that they will, for now, back a more ambitious era, and Pochettino should therefore get more financial support than last time. Spurs supporters would give Pochettino the patience that Frank has found in short supply. More than any manager available this summer, Pochettino gets Spurs. The requirement is not a manager to come in and just get them over the line in winning major honours. What Spurs need is a rebuild. This is a project club and a project job to create a culture, lift the mood and get Spurs competing again. Maybe more than important of all of that too is to make it fun along the way. Pochettino has done that once. The gamble that he can do it again might be too tempting for Spurs to resist. The Liverpool Echo state that Tottenham have slapped a £100 million valuation on Micky van der Ven this summer amid speculation linking him with a potential switch to Liverpool. It has been claimed, according to TalkSport, the North London outfit would demand a world record fee for a defender should he depart the club. The report indicates that Van der Ven is keen to leave Spurs in the upcoming summer window despite being tied to the Lily Whites until 2029. Liverpool have been mentioned as potential suitors for the centre-back who has caught the eye with his defensive prowess and blistering pace since arriving in the Premier League. Questions remain over whether the club will be able to splash out the significantly once more in the summer though after the £450 million transfer outlay last year. Central defence is clearly a pressing concern, with Slot currently short of options in such a crucial area. Ibrahima Konate was only a handful of months left on his contract as he inches closer to a potential departure, while Virgil van Dijk is approaching the twilight of his career. Give Me Sport report that Tottenham Hotspur are in the market for a striker this month, with reports suggesting they are in the race for Jonathan David, who would be a big upgrade on Randall Kolo-Muani. According to reports, Tottenham are leading the race to sign the Juventus striker David in the January transfer window. David, who has been described as one of the best strikers in the world, has struggled with regular minutes of late, but his goal record over the last few years speaks for itself. David would be keen on a move to the Premier League, and there's an argument to suggest that he would be a big upgrade on Kolo-Muani. Even in what is considered a poor season for David, he's got 3 more goals in the league than Kolo-Muani in 2 fewer starts, with the Spurs striker yet to find a Premier League goal, of course. If Spurs can get David in for a reasonable fee, which might be possible due to his lack of game time, then he would certainly be a player option for Frank than Kolo-Muani. Tottenham have also been linked with a move to sign Samu Agahawa this month, but David could be the better option for multiple reasons. The fee Juventus are likely to demand in comparison to what Porto will want for Samu is likely to be significantly different, with David undoubtedly the cheaper option. David has more experience playing in top leagues, with Samu currently plying his trade in Portugal. If Tottenham can secure David for a reasonable fee this month, then they should be doing everything they can to get him in. Football Insider reports that Thomas Frank's future remains uncertain as Tottenham as player power could influence the club's decision over whether they sack the manager. That is according to ex-Everton, Aston Villa and Aberdeen chief executive Keith Wyner, speaking exclusively to Football Insider, who reveals crisis meetings were held after Spurs' 2-1 defeat to West Ham. Spurs could have to pay up to £8 million in compensation to sack Frank, with a 52-year-old only having been appointed as manager in June 2025 on a 3-year deal. The Spurs fan base have already turned against Frank as the North London club sit just 10 points above the Premier League relegation zone. On Frank, Wyner stated, "I hope it's just about spending some more money to back him and get the squad right. I don't want to see player power come to the fore here, although that's the rumour again that some of the key players in the dressing room are anti-Thomas Frank. Look, they've got to back him, and if they do back him and get a couple of more signings in this window, which I'm told they have to do, then I will think he will have a chance to go forward, because he'll be able to show the players that he has the backing from the board, and that's what the owners are going to do." So the Lewis family is in their first big crisis as such. Now they've got to handle it. They've got Vinay Venkatesham, who is a seasoned chief executive, but is he strong enough? Well, we are going to find out about how strong he is, but now it's the time to tough it out and stick with your manager, get him a couple of reinforcements and move on, and then it will come good. Okay, well, here's my thoughts on all those stories today. Firstly, that long article about Pochettino's return. This is something that is definitely out there. I wouldn't say it's gaining traction. I think people will always talk about Pochettino coming back to Tottenham because it just seemed to end so abruptly, and a lot of people think that he'd had his chance and it was time to move on. I think we all forget how bad our away record was in that last calendar year under Pochettino. It wasn't very good at all. But I think a lot of that was due to the fact, look, Poch wasn't backed. He just wasn't backed by the board at the time. And results fell off, and you could see how frustrated he was in that summer press conference, of course, in 2019. He was incredibly frustrated when he said he's not the manager, he's the head coach. Pochettino loves Tottenham, and I've said many times, if the club were to part ways with Thomas Frank, I don't think you get Pochettino before the summer, but he gets the club, and he is one of the people in the world that would unite this fan base and the club and the players and everything, and I think he'd do it in pretty short order too. The feel-good factor would be back around the club. Look, at the moment, of course, we had a really good performance against Dortmund in the week. It was... look, one swallow doesn't make a summer, but it was really good just to see the club win again. It was like, and breathe. But we need to carry this on into Burnley. So the pressure is still going to be on Thomas Frank. And do the club stick with him until the summer? Could Thomas Frank turn it around? I'll come on to that a little bit later on. But for now, if they choose not to, and they go with an interim or whatever it is they do, the Pochettino debate will rumble on and on and on, and until this is sorted. I just think it just feels the right time for Pochettino to come back now. But hey, you might not be a Pochettino fan. A lot of people out there think he's had his chance, and you should never go back. So let me know in the comments what you think. Would you be happy if Pochettino did come back to Tottenham in the summer? Second article about Van der Ven's future. I can't see the club letting Van der Ven go. Well, they're certainly not going to let him go in January. The summer window might be a bit different, but again, I've said before, this is the sort of player we need to keep on board. This is the sort of player we need to build a team around and show him that we mean business, and he doesn't need to move on to places like Liverpool to try and win trophies and progress. We would need to be keeping players like this at Tottenham, and we need to be challenging for trophies and Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. That's what Daniel Levy said. You know, we have to act like a big club, and we are still not at the moment in this transfer window. I know it's a difficult one, but we're not acting like a big club. We need to act like a big club. Now, there might be reasons for that. Are the club not going big at the moment because they're not sure that Frank's going to be here in the future? And that I kind of would understand. But regardless, Thomas Frank is here at the moment and he needs players, so the club need to act now. Keeping Van der Ven at the club in the summer is a whole different debate. But it comes down to one thing, doesn't it? Show the player that you mean intent and the player will stay. That's all Spurs have got to do. One player that we could be bringing in this window, Jonathan David, was mentioned there. I'm not 100% sure. He's not been setting the world alight, to be honest, this season, Jonathan David, when you look at his stats. Say he's one of the best strikers in the world, I kind of disagree with that. I think that's saying something that he isn't. Because when I read that, I thought, oh, Harry Kane? No, Jonathan David. So would it be an upgrade on Moani? Probably. It's fair to say Kolo Moani hasn't really done much at all since coming to Tottenham. 2 good goals against PSG, of course, but apart from that, Premier League has been pretty bad, hasn't even scored. So I would imagine Kolo Muani goes back in the summer. There's, of course, nothing in his contract to say that we no obligation or option to buy him anyway. A bit of a disaster for him personally, I would imagine. He would have. He's probably frustrated himself that he hasn't done too well. But Jonathan David, get down in the comments, let me know. Would you be happy to get Jonathan David into the club? I would imagine this one would split the fan base as well. I personally think we should be going for players with better numbers, ready-made Premier League players. So, yeah, get down in the comments, let me know on that one. And as for Frank's future, again, we could talk about this all day. I think Thomas Frank bought himself some time with that brilliant performance in the week. However, we've got to take it into Burnley. Look, I think we've got a chance, actually, over the next 2 games. We've got Burnley and then Frankfurt, of course. So we could get 2 wins here. We could, because it's a tough February coming up, but we could get 2 wins. We should be looking to get 2 wins. Burnley down the bottom of the Premier League, and Frankfurt, of course, right down the bottom of the Champions League table. No chance to progress in that competition. So it's a bit of a dead rubber. Really good opportunity for Frank, but the players have got to perform. I know we're down to the bare bones, but we have got a few players back for the Burnley game, so big game on Saturday for Frank, and let's hope we can get another 3 points on the board. That's all from me today. Get down in the comments, let me know your thoughts right now, how you're feeling as a Tottenham Hotspur fan as always. And just comment about all the stories in this report today. And as always, come on you Spurs.